Chapter 31. But at true martial holy sect, outer sect disciples are also divided into ordinary and elite. Stepping onto the 8 steps with tenfold gravity is considered being an ordinary outer sect disciple. And if one can complete all 8 steps, they can become an elite disciple. Elite disciples definitely receive far more resources. For cultivation, wealth, companions, methodologies, and territory are indispensable. Therefore, every year many newcomers wish to challenge this and directly become elite disciples. Leaving behind a splendid story, Suzume stepped onto the steps with tenfold gravity, the force of the gravity growing stronger. He loosened his body a bit and took a deep breath. As he stepped onto the first step, he encountered the twin sisters standing there. Suzume looked down and gave them a once-over, his gaze pausing briefly on the twins' bosoms. "What are you looking at? Haven't you seen a beauty before?" The younger sister Shui Mengmeng retorted, showing her small tiger teeth, and glared at Suzume. "I live at Goose Southern Peak." Suzume tapped their shoulders 3 times and then walked towards the second step with a big laugh. "What does he mean by that?" Shui Mengmeng asked her sister. Puzzled, her sister Shui Chenchua clenched her silver teeth, angrily saying, "He's telling us where he lives and even patted our shoulders 3 times. It means he's asking us to go to Goose Southern Peak to find him at midnight. Shameless." Shui Mengmeng watched Suzume's departing back. Her little fists clenched tight and her face flushed red. Stepping onto the 3rd step, Suzume saw a stocky young man named Gao Xiong and smiled at him. "My name is Gao Xiong. Nice to meet you," the young man named Gao Xiong said, scratching his head with a simple smile. "Me ma used to say that as a kid, I could go head-to-head with the brown bears in the forest without being the least bit weaker. So she named me Gao Xiong, the little prince of close combat." "Huh," Suzume said with a smile. "Young man, I think highly of you. Want to hang with me? Are there any benefits?" Gao Xiong asked curiously. "When I carry out my destiny and ascend to great emperor, I'll appoint you as my 2nd war general. How about that?" Suzume said with a laugh. "As for the position of 1st war general, it had already been reserved by Lin Ruhu, but I want to be a great emperor too." Gao Xiong said with a laugh, showing off a set of big white teeth with a naive expression. "If you contest the destiny with me, I'll have no choice but to kill you then." Suzume said, "Maybe I can counter-kill you." Gao Xiong laughed dismissively. "Haha, interesting, really interesting." Suzume laughed heartily for a few moments, then looked at Gao Xiong thoughtfully. "Inheritor of the ancient power bear bloodline, you indeed have the qualification to contend for the destiny. It's a pity that you were born in the same era as me." Gao Xiong's expression changed as he looked intently at Suzume. His ancient power bear bloodline was always his secret. How could the other party know? Leaving behind a contemplative Gao Xiong, Suzume continued upwards to arrive before the 5th step. He looked at the young girl in front of him, Bailey Xiao, who was also looking at him, their eyes meeting. "I really regret the idiotic things I did back then," Suzume said gently. The girl looked at him with eyes full of confusion. A gentle breeze rippled the surface of the lake, and the branches of the willow trees on either side swayed with the wind, while several birds flew from afar, their wings beating softly. "The game has started. But this time I am the one in control." Suzume suddenly smiled, paying no attention to the girl, stepped into the void, radiating confidence and an air of unrestrained grace. Yen Buhue stood with his sword, his body erect, resembling a drawn sword. Sword chi enveloped him, his white clothes fluttering in the wind. His long hair slightly gathered into a bun with a sideways fringe covering half his eyebrow. Dancing in the breeze. "Do you want revenge?" Suzume asked, stepping onto the stairway, smiling as he looked ahead the same time as the young man. "If you help me eliminate the Huang family, my life is yours." Yen Buhue turned his head, eyes glittering as if there were swords flashing within, gazing intently at Suzume. "Shouldn't vengeance be more satisfying when carried out with one's own hands?" Suzume smiled and, without giving the youth's astonished look any further attention, stepped up to that final stair. His momentum was overwhelming, spiritual energy surging around him like a mighty river. His purple robe draped behind him as he turned to look at the countless youths still struggling against gravity to climb. Suzume couldn't help but think of the true martial great emperor, that man who bore his destiny and stood at the zenith of the heavens, and who proclaimed, "Destiny is mine." Alone before the whole world with such grandeur, young Master Zimo truly has an extraordinary talent, an inner gate elder said with a sardonic tone nearby. He truly lives up to the deputy sect master's continuous nurturing. What the inner gate elder meant was that Suzume was only able to outshine the other newcomers because his father was the deputy sect master, suggesting he was built upon by superior resources. Always leave room for maneuver in your actions. Don't deprive yourself of even the opportunity to beg for mercy in the future. Suzume glanced indifferently at the inner gate elder and remarked. The inner gate elder's face changed and he looked deeply at Suzume before falling silent. After Suzume climbed the 188 steps, Lin Ruhu, too, struggled for a long time before finally reaching the top. Yen Buhue, surrounded by swirling sword chi which seemed to soar into the skies, followed by the sound of sword cries, eventually made his way up as well. Although Bailey Xiao had no particularly stunning performance, she step by step, just kept walking up, against all odds, with her body feeling like it was going to be crushed by the intense gravity. She gritted her teeth and ultimately made it to the top. After that, no other disciples were able to finish climbing the 188 steps, but nevertheless, many disciples managed to step onto those 8 steps afterward. The trials of the true martial holy sect were divided into 3 phases, and after all 3 phases were complete, the scores from each phase would be added together. The top 100 ranking disciples would then be allowed to join the true martial holy sect and become outer gate disciples. As for the second phase, it was a test of aptitude, which is absolutely crucial for martial artists. Even the Empress Hongtian, that girl with mediocre talent, had to seek ways to enhance her aptitude step by step on her journey to becoming emperor. The true martial holy sect classified aptitude into 9 levels, with first level being the strongest and 9th level the weakest. Typically, an aptitude of 4th level or above is considered to be competent. Suzume did not participate in this phase. Confident in his aptitude after merging with the eternal ancient number 1 body and the prison-suppressing divine body in this phase, Gao Xiang and Yen Buhue both possessed first-level aptitude, while Bailey Xiao had second-level aptitude and the twin siblings had third-level aptitude. Aptitude was tested specifically with an enlightenment stone, one of the Taoist stones from nature, which, after modification, was used explicitly for testing aptitude. Chapter 32. The aptitude testing on the Enlightenment Stone continued, with most disciples who came to the true martial holy sect having 3rd or 4th class aptitudes and many also possessing 1st or 2nd class aptitudes. Just as the aptitude testing was about to come to an end, everything changed when a young man clad in a black robe placed his hand on the Enlightenment Stone. Instantly, lines of Tao became visible on the stone, the patterns emitting beams of golden light that shot straight up into the sky. King-level aptitude, an outer sect elder excitedly declared. The last time we saw a king-level aptitude was 10 years ago, if I remember correctly, an inner sect elder said with a smile. King-level aptitude was not rare within the true martial holy sect, but it definitely belonged to those with considerable potential and extraordinary talents. King-level aptitude was 1 notch above first-class aptitude. The young man seemed to have known about his talent all along. He was not at all surprised. Instead, he proudly basked in the envious glances of the other youths around him. What is your name? An inner sect elder stepped forward and inquired. Disciple Yubo. The young man hurriedly answered with respect. Would you like to become my direct disciple? The inner sect elder asked. Even if you don't pass this trial, I can still take you as my disciple if you agree. Thank you, master, I am willing. Yubo did not stand on ceremony and began to kneel and kowtow immediately. The youths nearby were filled with envy. Just arrived at the true martial holy sect and already taken as a direct disciple by an inner sect elder. Yubo's future is boundless. Brother, yes, talents are unrivaled, hardly comparable to mere mortals like yourselves. A keen disciple by the side began to butter up right away. Zimo, shall we recruit him to our side? Lin Ruhu asked as he looked at Yubo. He's just a jumping clown. Suzume shook his head. In his past life, Yubo indeed had a moment of glory, but all he had was talent. His Tao heart was unstable and ultimately, he faded into obscurity. As a martial artist, one can work on gradually improving inferior talents. There's always a way, but if there's an issue with one's Tao heart, then one is unlikely to achieve much in this lifetime. Therefore, among martial artists, there's a saying that goes, if You have an invincible Tao heart, then you have the qualification to become a strong person. After the second stage of the aptitude test was over, everyone rested for a short spell before moving on to the third stage. The third stage was to test the Tao heart. The true martial holy sect would create an illusion, and the person who remained lucid the longest within would score the highest in this stage. If one could remain lucid until the end of the illusion, a full score would be attained. Generally, there were two types of lucidity. One where the spirit doesn't fall into delusion from the start, demonstrating a resilient Tao heart. The other is where a person succumbs but manages to extricate themselves from the temptation of the illusion and achieve self-awareness at the last moment. A Tao heart with imperfections, yet teeming with potential, meriting a full score as well. After the brief rest, a young man emerged from within the holy sect. The youth was dressed in the special blue robe of the true martial holy sect, his features resolute, and there seemed to be a sort of magic in his eyes that could make one lose themselves if looked into for too long. The seventh elder of the true martial holy sect was an array master, under whom were 5 direct disciples, famously known in the martial world as the 10,000 arrays 5 disciples. These 5 disciples each specialized in different formations. Some excelled in killing arrays, others in defense formations, and some in auxiliary formations. The young man named Qi Shan was the most skilled in illusion arrays among the 10,000 arrays 5 disciples. "He'll be setting the challenge for the third round," Qi Shan said lightly as he looked at the young men before him. "He'll lay out a 7 emotions and 6 desires formation. Just from the name, you should guess the purpose of this formation, so I won't explain further." Spiritual energy surged in Qi Shan's palms as he began to form array seals with his hands. Crafting each one the size of a thumb from the spiritual energy, he formed the seals at a rapid pace in just a few breaths. 100 array seals were conjured. Formations also have a strict hierarchy, similar to the realms of a vain practitioner, based on the number of array seals. 10 seals would constitute a first-tier formation, while 100 seals belong to a second-tier formation. Once these 100 array seals were set in their strategic positions on the ground, lined up in order and merged into the spiritual energy, Qi Shan's hands once again stirred up spiritual energy, transforming it into a beam of light that fell into the formation, which was then instantly activated. The inside of the formation was shrouded in a thin layer of mist, making it impossible to see what was within. Outside the formation were white streams of spiritual energy, forming a circle of light that was both luminescent and mist-laden. "The assessment will last a quarter of an hour. After a quarter of an hour, I will dismantle the formation," announced Qi Shan. The new disciples each made their way into the formation, sitting cross-legged and relaxing their minds, seeking to be in the best state to face the assessment. "Let's go join the fun," Su Zime suggested to Lin Ruhu. He led Lin Ruhu into the formation and had just settled down when the formation began to operate. Layers of mist enveloped everyone. The surrounding youths were instantly subjected to illusions, but Su Zime remained unaffected. Taking a moment to survey the formation, in his view, although it was full of flaws, it was still decent by the standards of a second-tier array master. Su Zime emptied his mind and allowed the mist to draw him into an illusory world. If he hadn't been willing, such a low-level formation would never have been able to compromise his mind and spirit. All around was a vast expanse of white. Laughter, clear as silver bells, reached Su Zime's ears. Several scantily clad women approached him with a sultry gait, their ample bosoms and long legs exposed and their black hair billowing loosely behind them as if they had just bathed. However, before these women could come close, Su Zime lashed out with a palm strike, dispelling all the illusions. "How uninspired, cliché, beautiful women are fleeting. In the end, they're nothing but skeletons." The next moment, thunderous cheers suddenly erupted in Su Zime's ears. He saw himself standing at the summit of the firmament, surrounded by destiny. He looked regal in a purple robe, his presence monumental and unstoppable, as if he were the great emperor who ruled over the world. No, he was the emperor, the mightiest of his era. Countless beings knelt before him in worship. Having been reborn in this life, I am destined to ascend the firmament and become the great emperor. Why should I indulge in these fantasies? Su Zime shook his head and shattered the illusions with a punch. At the next moment, the scene before Su Zime's eyes transformed. He became an ant crawling between heaven and earth while 10 great emperors strode through the air above the summit of the firmament. Their imperial majesty swept across vast distances, their purple's aura spanning 90,000 miles, holding the sun and the moon, plucking stars from the sky. Suzume, do you plead guilty? The 10 emperors challenged him simultaneously, their gazes divine, their statures colossal, shoulders carrying the heavens, feet treading upon clouds. Their oppressive might bore down like the collapse of the 9 heavens, leaving Suzume gasping for breath. Chapter 33. The ancient emperor, the vast emperor, the soaring emperor, the great emperor Tianqi. Looking at these emperors who were admired by future generations, Suzume's expression remained unchanged as he indifferently said, "What crime have I committed? Even if you carry destiny and substitute the will of the heavens, what can you do?" At that moment, Suzume really wanted to shout out loud, "We cultivators naturally defy the heavens. Who dares to place themselves above all? Today I will shatter the heavens, my fate is my own, not dictated by the heavens." But, upon second thought, he felt it was somewhat adolescent. His gaze grew sharp, he drew Tyrant Shadow from his back, and with his lean figure, he looked up at the 10 emperors in the sky, his lips curled into a smile. "What does it matter if I pull you down from your pedestals?" He walked on air, Tyrant Shadow in hand, reflecting a blaze of glory, roaring as he charged towards those emperors. "The world's turmoil starts because of us. Once involved in the rivers and lakes, time hurries by. Imperial ambitions and supreme rule are all but jests. In the end, life is nothing more than a drunken revelry." Qi Shan waved his hands, and the 7 emotions and 6 desires formation gradually dissolved. The fog cleared, and Suzume had a smile on his lips. The 7 emotions and 6 desires formation could bring out a person's most primitive desires. Whatever you most longed for, it could create within the illusion for you: authority, wealth, beauty, or strength. In the arena, many of the young men were already disheveled, with clothes askew and hair scattered, looking very wretched. Even those who were in better condition had faces either pale or flushed, their entire bodies covered in a sheen of cold sweat. "Ruhu, what did you see in the illusion?" Suzume asked with interest. "I saw many women without clothes, but I wasn't interested, so I blasted them away." Lin Rua said, "I also saw myself carrying destiny, becoming an emperor, but I knew that in this life, the emperor must be Brother Zemo. So I killed all those who worshipped me too." Suzume suddenly realized that this kind of illusion was actually just a way to stir up the desires in one's heart, but for someone like Lin Ruhu who had no desires, it was pointless. "Ruhu, what do you like?" Suzume asked curiously. "I just like following behind Brother Zemo," Lin Ruhu said with a simple smile. "Let me make it clear, my personal aesthetics are very normal." Suzume hastily clarified. "That's not what I mean," Lin Ruhu quickly said. "I already have someone I like." "Who?" Suzume blinked. Lin Ruhu always seemed quiet and reserved, but unexpectedly this broad-browed, big-eyed man turned out to be the kind who was restless inside. "The daughter of the 7th elder," Lin Ruhu replied in a muted voice. "Shu." Suzume drew in a breath of cold air, truly terrifying indeed. Suzume had seen the 7th elder's daughter before, and he hadn't expected Ruha's taste to be so intense. "What do you like about her?" Suzume felt it was necessary to ask clearly. "I think her personality is quite good," Lin Ruha said with a silly smile, seeming to reminisce about something, his smile as radiant as the spring sunshine. "Excuse me," Suzume nodded silently, not continuing the conversation. "He's a werewolf." At this time, the inner sect elders had already begun to announce the names of the top 100 disciples. The named young men were all tremendously excited, looking around with pride, standing tall with their chests out as the list of 100 names neared completion. The remaining young men looked downcast, their year of anticipation turning into utter despair. Those youths who failed to join the holy sect shouldn't give up. The path of a martial artist is fraught with setbacks. It can't all be smooth sailing. An inner sect elder stood at the front, consoling them. "You can come back next year or choose to join another sect, which is also a fine choice, in the extreme west region." Aside from the true martial holy sect, there were indeed many other sects. However, no matter how one looked at it, the true martial holy sect was the strongest. The inner sect elder then gave an inspiring speech to the remaining 100 youngsters who had joined the true martial holy sect. The main message was, "The sect is for me and I for the sect." After the speech ended, the inner sect elder took out a hexagonal crystal. The surface of the crystal was polished smooth like a mirror, twinkling with specks of light. The inner sect elder didn't tell everyone what the crystal was for, but had everyone line up and try placing their hand on the crystal one by one. "What's this for?" Lin Ruhu asked curiously from a distance. Legacy Crystal, Su Zime replied with a smile. He had already anticipated the result. This was a moment that could be recorded in the history of the true martial holy sect. And also the moment when Bailey Xiao truly stepped through the Dragon Gate, but Su Zime didn't try to stop it because everything seemed so interesting, so beautiful that he didn't even want to shatter someone else's hope. The youngsters placed their hands on the crystal. One by one, yet the crystal showed no reaction. The inner sect elder's expression was calm, as he had anticipated this outcome. It's not easy to find a successor chosen by the Empress. The queue began to dwindle, whether it was Yen Buhue or Gao Xiang, or even the pair of twin sisters. They all failed in turn. It wasn't until the girl nervously walked forward and placed her hand on the crystal that Bailey Xiao felt a warm current flow from the crystal. Immediately after, the whole crystal suddenly emitted a dazzling silver light. This is, said the inner sect elder who stood at the front, looking at the crystal in a state of shock, rendered speechless. Not far away, Su Zimai's lips curled into a smile. TSK, such a historic moment. It's a pity there's nothing to record it. As the crystal emitted the dazzling light, there suddenly appeared, up in the sky, over a dozen figures rising into the air. Each figure radiated a heaven-shaking presence, and as these figures appeared at the same time, their auras faintly joined together, solidifying the surrounding air with a force as vast as the sea. Among these figures were the true martial holy sect's 7 elders, including the deputy sect master. All present, this crystal was a treasure of the sect gate. Naturally, it would not be so easily entrusted to an inner sect elder. In fact, every time a new successor was sought, these high-ranking officials were secretly present, preferring not to reveal themselves. Brother Zimo, what's happening? Lin Ruhu, seeing the high-ranking officials of the sect at the center, asked in astonishment. The crystal slowly rose into the sky, emitting a brilliant light as if something was about to emerge. Su Zime said with a smile. Before the 4 great emperors of our true martial holy sect descended, they all left their legacies within the sect. They hoped that one day a suitable person would obtain the legacy and then lead the holy sect to a golden age. The legacy of the divine travel great emperor was obtained by our current sect master, while the legacy of the true martial great emperor was obtained by my father. Now, only the legacies of the great emperor of the 3 Blades and Empress Hongtian remain vacant, and today, the successor to Empress Hongtian has appeared. Chapter 34. Everyone was shocked by the scene before them as the smooth crystal gradually dissolved, revealing a shadow that stepped out from within. This shadow seemed to have traversed the 9 heavens and 10 earths, crossing through time and the river of fate. All was silent, and not a bird could be heard chirping. The majestic imperial might swept across the entire Yuan central continent at this moment, whether it was the ancient creatures who had cultivated for countless years or the naturally talented evil beings. None were exceptions. All were stunned by this enormous momentum, their gazes involuntarily turning towards the true martial holy sect. It's the Empress, someone shouted. All the people of the true martial holy sect knelt on the ground, looking up at the sky with devotion. Endless radiance fell from the shadow, as if a mist covered it, preventing anyone from seeing the Empress' face clearly. The inner sect elders swallowed hard and exclaimed in a lost voice, "The Empress' successor, she is the one chosen by the Empress." The shadow looked back at the world for a moment as if freezing time and space, then transformed into a streak of silver light, flying into Bailey Xiao's body with an indomitable momentum. Then, everyone only heard a thunderous explosion as the legacy crystal of the Empress shattered. A complete skeleton flew out from within, radiating with bright silver light, surrounded by strands of lunar brilliance. The flying immortal body, an elder exclaimed, "It is the Empress' flying immortal body. She left it behind when she ascended without taking it with her." Everyone gasped, their eyes filled with disbelief as they looked at Bailey Xiao. Those in the know understood just how great an opportunity this girl had received. The flying immortal body, ranked 7th among the 100 great battle bodies and renowned as the battle body that represents the ultimate speed. It is known that among the 4 true martial great emperors of the true martial holy sect, only Empress Hongtian obtained the 7th-ranked flying immortal body, while the true martial great emperor obtained the 15th-ranked true martial sword body. The other 2 great emperors, even after carrying destiny, were unable to obtain a battle body. The legacy of the true martial great emperor was inherited by Su Qingshan, but it did not include his own inherited battle body. No one expected that Empress Hong Tian would actually leave her flying immortal body behind. As the flying immortal body merged into Bailey Xiao's body, she fell to the ground, screaming in agony. Su Zime understood the pain of transforming her entire body. Sixth Elder Xiao Wexian quickly flew down from the sky and encouraged her at the side. Shower, hold on, this is an important moment for you to change your destiny, you must endure. Under the anxious eyes of everyone, Bailey Xiao gradually calmed down, sat cross-legged, suppressed her own spiritual energy, and then slowly exhaled. Auntie, Bailey Xiao said upon seeing Xiao Wexian and quickly greeted her. Child, you really are blessed, Xiao Wexian said contentedly. You have received the Empress legacy and you have merged with the flying immortal body. You are definitely qualified to compete for your destiny in this life. I will try my best, so I won't let Auntie down. Bailey Xiao nodded and replied. The trial for new disciples had ended and the girl had become the sole protagonist of this trial. Su Zime was now also an outer sect disciple of the True Martial Holy Sect. According to the rules of the True Martial Holy Sect, an outer sect disciple must complete 3 sect missions within a month. There was a special mission hall within the sect where disciples took on missions. Su Zime did not concern himself with how much of a sensation this trial had caused within the True Martial Holy Sect. He, along with Lin Ruhu, headed to the mission hall. Completing and submitting tasks all had to be done in the task hall. Hence, when Su Zime arrived, the hall was usually crowded. The scene could be described as bustling. There was a long queue waiting to take on tasks. But Su Zime couldn't be bothered to line up and went directly to the front of the queue. At the front, a disciple was in the process of accepting a task. The disciple smiled at the one distributing tasks behind the counter and said, Senior brother, I'd like to take on a task. What's your cultivation level? Asked the young man at the counter without looking up. 5th layer of the Spirit Vein Realm. The disciple quickly replied, Spirit Vein Realm can only take on level 5 tasks, the young man said indifferently. Then carelessly tossed a wooden token to the outer sect disciple. The outer sect disciple hurriedly caught the task token, glanced at the assignment detailed on it, and his expression changed. He then said with a forced smile, Could you perhaps give me a different level 5 task, senior brother? There were various types of tasks in the task hall. Some involved slaying monster beasts, some entailed eradicating bandits, some required escorting caravans, and some involved mining rare minerals. Some tasks were issued by the inner sect elders, while others were posted by people from outside. As long as there was a spirit crystal reward and the task didn't harm others, it could be posted within the True Martial Holy Sect. Hence, even if they were all level 5 tasks, some were easier and some more challenging. The one this outer sect disciple had taken on involved killing a monster beast. The frown of the young man issuing tasks deepened as he said displeasedly, This one's picky about tasks, that one's picky about tasks. If I give all the easy tasks to you, then who's going to complete the rest? The outer sect disciple meekly nodded, not daring to object. These task-issuing disciples held significant power, and most didn't dare to provoke them if you really angered them. There would be nothing you could say if they deliberately gave you the hardest task next time you came to take on a task. Su Zime patted the shoulder of the outer sect disciple in front of him and said with a smile, Brother, let me cut in. Who the hell are you? The outer sect disciple frowned and glanced at Su Zime, his tone annoyed. Since Su Zime usually resided at Goose Southern Peak, many inner and outer sect disciples were not very familiar with him. Su Zime hadn't even spoken when suddenly a disciple from behind exploded, kicking the outer sect disciple to the ground and said fiercely, Open your damn eyes and see, this is the son of our True Martial Holy Sect's deputy sect master. Brother Zimo, it's your honor that he's cutting in front of you. Don't be ungrateful. The outer sect disciple's complexion changed as he hastily apologized to Su Zime and then left in disgrace. Su Zime looked at the disciple who had defended him and asked with a smile, What's your name? Imzhang Gilin, just call me Xiao Gizi, senior brother. The disciple hurriedly answered, Not bad. Xiao Gizi, from now on, you can hang out with me, said Su Zime with a smile. Su Zime didn't like flatterers, but having a lackey by his side could save him a lot of trouble. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Senior brother, maybe you don't know, but I've always respected you like the endless waters of the river, leading on ceaselessly, like the yellow rivers flooding that's beyond containment, Zhang Gilin said with a smile. Then he suddenly slammed the counter and urged the young man issuing tasks. What are you staring at? Senior brother Su has come to take a task. Hurry up and bring out some of the better ones. Chapter 35. Oh, the young man issuing the missions was taken aback and hurriedly pulled out a bunch of wooden plaques and placed them on the table for Suzime to choose from. Suzime watched Xiao Gizi acting bossy beside him, but did not speak up to stop him smiling. She asked, "Could you show me some of the ungraded missions?" Generally, when outsiders post missions at the true martial holy sect, the levels of danger for some missions are unclear even to those who post them. Therefore, these kinds of missions are classified as ungraded. If a disciple takes on one of these missions and completes it later, they will be rewarded according to the difficulty of the task. The young man nodded his head and pulled out another bunch of wooden plaques, reminding her, "Disciple Su, the levels of danger for these missions are unknown, so be careful when you choose." Suzime smiled and nodded, looked through them, and then picked up a wooden plaque. The mission on this plaque was that the Hu family in 10 Mile Town had recently been troubled by ghosts and wished to hire martial artists with capable skills to capture the evil ghost. Holding the wooden plaque, Suzime left the mission hall, and along the way, Lin Ruhu asked curiously, "Brother Zimo, do ghosts truly exist in this world?" "That depends on how you understand ghosts," Suzime explained with a smile. "Those born from heaven and raised by earth do not, but those created by human hands do." At this moment inside the great hall of the true martial holy sect, the deputy sect master Su Qingshan and the 7 great elders were present. "Deputy sect master, I think we should allocate a large amount of resources preferentially," said the 6th elder Xiao Yuexian. "Xiao has inherited the Empress legacy and acquired the flying immortal body. She is absolutely qualified to compete for destiny, and perhaps in this generation, the true martial holy sect could see the rise of another empress." "The 6th elder is getting too emotional," the great elder interjected. "Destiny is not something that can be easily competed for, and besides, Bailey Xiao has only recently joined the true martial holy sect and lacks a sense of belonging." "Oh, then what does the great elder suggest?" Xiao Yuexian asked blandly. "Yuer is the most talented of this generation of the holy sect, with an emperor-level talent that everyone has witnessed," the great elder said slowly. "Moreover, he has grown up under all of our watchful eyes and can be safely cultivated. I think my own senior disciple Xiao Xinghe is also quite outstanding." The 2nd elder added in, "Xiao Xinghe won't do. I've heard he often peeps at female disciples bathing, and his conduct is not upright," the great elder said with a frown. The 2nd elder fell silent for a moment, wanting to defend his senior disciple at that moment. He really wanted to stand up and shout at everyone, "The one who peeped at the female disciples bathing was me. It has nothing to do with my disciple." But the 2nd elder feared for his later years and thought to himself, as the saying goes, once a teacher, always a father, and since the son must pay for the father's debts. With this in mind, the 2nd elder felt much more at ease in his heart. He felt no remorse for setting up his disciple. What does the 7th elder think? Su Qingshan pondered for a moment, then turned to look at the silent man in the corner and asked. The 7th elder of the true martial holy sect gave off an especially scholarly and refined impression, looking like a lettered scholar. He wore a gray robe and tied his hair in a topknot. He did not carry an imposing aura and appeared rather ordinary, like an average schoolteacher. The 7th elder smiled and replied, "I think Bailey Xiao's talent is quite promising. If we look into it and there are no problems, she deserves to be heavily cultivated. I've heard that the Divine Sun Holy Sect has already determined their Saint Heir and Saintess candidates. Ready to nurture them for the competition for destiny, we shouldn't lag behind others." Upon hearing the 7th elder's words, Xiao Yuexian smiled and said, "The 7th elder's disciples, the 10,000 array's 5 disciples, are each endowed with exceptional talents, not much less than Xiao. They are not suitable." The 7th elder shook his head without elaborating further. "The selection of the Saint Heir and Saintess cannot be taken lightly." Su Qingshan contemplated for a moment, then said, "Since no one can decide, why not have a competition?" "I disagree," Xiao Yuexian objected. "Xiao has only been exposed to martial arts for a short time. This kind of competition would be unfair to her 6th elder. There's no such thing as absolute fairness in this world. Besides, Bailey Xiao has inherited the Empress legacy. She may not be that far behind," Su Qingshan said. "I'm not suggesting we compete now. In half a year, our true martial holy sect will host a competition among the 7 sects. We can determine the candidates for Saint Heir and Scientists based on their performance in the competition. After all, we need to judge from multiple aspects, not just talent alone. Hearing that the competition would be held in half a year, Xiao Yuexian thought it over and felt that there was ample time. So she agreed, "I have no objections." The other elders nodded in agreement one after another. After the conference ended, Su Qingshan called Su Zime aside to Azure Mountain Peak. "What do you think of the girl named Bailey Xiao today?" Su Qingshan asked tentatively. "Just so. Su Zime knew what his father was implying. "I've discussed it with the sixth elder and decided to betroth her to you," Su Qingshan said after a pause. As expected, Su Zime laughed. The same script as in his past life. In his previous life, he had met Bailey Xiao for the first time at the moment she inherited the Empress legacy. He was deeply attracted by her appearance, temperament, and talent. When his father was preparing to betroth Bailey Xiao to him, he was ecstatic. Bailey Xiao readily agreed and did not object to anything, making everything seem so natural. Only later did Su Zime realize he was just a pawn in her game. Back then, Su Zime was like a dog that licked its owner, often hanging around the young girl. She, however, was extremely cold to him, and whenever Su Zime was about to give up in disappointment, Bailey Xiao would throw him a bone. Reigniting his hopes, he was being played in the palms of others. Bailey Xiao's aunt was the sixth elder of the true martial holy sect, and with Su Zime as her fiancée and leveraging Su Qingshan's power, she could do as she pleased within the entire true martial holy sect, strengthening herself bit by bit with the resources of the sect. Then, when she truly grew strong, she destroyed the engagement with a single word and turned to embrace her brother Chu Yang. The true martial holy sect was just a stepping stone in her life. Probably no one expected that a girl from an ordinary small mountain village would harbor such ambition. Recalling the miserable first half of his past life, Su Zime couldn't help but laugh at himself. "She's not my type." Su Zime's thoughts returned to the present, and he said with a smile, declining, "What type do you like?" Su Qingshan asked in return. "I like." Su Zime paused for a moment, then confidently responded, "Singing, dancing, rap, and basketball." Chapter 36. Seeing his father's expression growing ever more serious, Su Zime quickly replied, "I haven't really thought about marriage, and you don't need to talk about parental orders or matchmakers' words. Nowadays free love is all the rage, don't you understand?" Su Qingshan explained, "Bailey Xiao is destined to receive the sect gate's full support, even to compete for destiny. In doing this for your sake as well, plus, feelings can be cultivated slowly." "So, did you and mother also develop your feelings gradually?" Su Zime asked. "How could that be?" Su Qingshan hurriedly replied, "With the spring breeze brushing the face, by the willow-lined riverbank, a handsome young man, a graceful young girl, your mother and I fell in love at first sight. I want to find love at first sight too." Su Zime said, "Are you possibly thinking of vying for the title of Great Emperor?" Su Qingshan looked at Su Zime, asking earnestly, "Who doesn't want to be a great emperor?" Su Zime countered, "I understand." Su Qingshan paused for a moment, then said, "Go ahead. In half a year, the sect gate will hold a competition between the 7 sects. Get yourself prepared in advance. When you win the contest, I can rightfully name you as the Saint Heir." In fact, Su Zime wasn't interested in the position of Saint Heir but still nodded and left Azure Mountain Peak. Afterwards, he took Lin Ruhu and Xiao Gizi with him to 10 Mile Town. The group first went to the beast taming pavilion, each rented a desert flying horse, and then left the true martial holy sect in a grand manner. It was spring, the roadside willows were budding, flowers were blooming in desperate competition, and gusts of spring breeze blew in from afar, kicking up clouds of dust. On the combat stage of Qingyang village, an intense competition was underway. Chu Yang, looking at the young man before him, unsheathed his wandering dragon sword and used the Shadow 13 swords taught to him by Ink Elder. The longsword buzzed in the air, creating 13 afterimages that charged at the young man across from him. The young man on the other side held a sword in each hand, struggling to fend off the swift sword shadows as he fought and retreated. He was getting closer to the edge of the combat stage. A gleam flashed in Chu Yang's eyes, the sword shadows accelerated, and then he took the opportunity to kick his opponent off the combat stage. "I declare the winner of this combat competition in Qingyang village is Chu Yang," Kochemo announced proudly from the side. He had personally witnessed this young man's rise from the beginning, when his body was frail and he couldn't even stand steadily in a horse stance, to now, being at the 5th level of the spirit vein realm and becoming one of the distinguished young generation of Qingyang village, and this young man had only taken a mere few weeks to reach this level, unruffled, showing no pride over his modest achievements. The future is promising indeed. Coach Mo, I think it's time for me to leave Qingyang village. Thank you for your care during this time. After the competition ended, Chu Yang found Coach Mo and expressed his thoughts sincerely. Coach Mo was taken aback for a moment. Then he understood and smiled. That's true, I should have expected this. A hidden dragon can't remain in the shallow waters forever. One day you will soar to the heavens. This small world of Qingyang village isn't your battlefield. It's just that I didn't expect this day to come so soon. You have the best talent of anyone I've ever seen. You're in no way inferior to those young masters from big families in the imperial city. No matter what happens in the future, I will always remember I'm from Qingyang village. Chu Yang replied firmly, great, that's the spirit. Coach Mo laughed heartily, then asked, where are you planning to go? Have you decided on a place? I don't know, I was thinking of heading north towards the imperial city to broaden my horizons. Chu Yang laughed. When I was young, I worked in mysterious Yuan City for a while. If you don't mind, I can recommend you go there to have a look. Coach Mo said, sure. I have to pass through mysterious Yuan City anyway on my way to the imperial dynasty. Chu Yang chuckled. Then Coach Mo took out half of a jade pendant, handed it to Chu Yang, and said, take this half of the jade pendant to the army camp in mysterious Yuan City, find a man named Du Tianin, and tell him you're Mo Tianqi's nephew. He will know what to do. Chu Yang took the jade pendant and offered his gratitude solemnly. Coach Mo smiled, waved his hand, and said, go ahead, a broader stage awaits you outside, your journey has just begun. The next day, at the crack of dawn, before the sky lightened with the pale color of fish bellies, Chu Yang had already packed his luggage. He left Qingyang village, stepping into the fading darkness of the night. The young man looked back at the small village where he had lived for over a decade, a humble place that had withstood the test of time for many years. In Chu Yang's eyes was an endless depth of fondness and reluctance to leave. Yang, stop looking back. It's time for us to go, the voice of Ink Elder rang in his ear. Chu Yang turned his head, shouldered his luggage, and slowly walked towards the distance. Ink Elder, have you ever encountered people or things in your life that you miss? At such a young age, you've already learned to be nostalgic. The old man laughed heartily. Then he fell silent for a moment and slowly asked, Yang, do you understand what it means to walk the Great Tao alone? Walk the Great Tao alone? The youth's voice was full of confusion. The summit of the martial path is loneliness, is solitude, is an endless quest, is the chilling solitude that comes with great heights. The old man replied with a sigh, the martial path is, after all, a solitary celebration. The powerful are always destined to be alone. When you stand at the beginning of this road, you will have many companions by your side. As you silently move forward, you will lose some of these people and you'll get to know some new friends as well. You will endure the scorching sun and the driving rain, stained with blood and tears, walking through mountains of blades and seas of fire. When you look back again, you will find that those who once accompanied you have all disappeared. Some gave up on their martial path to settle down, to build families with new ties, choosing to live out their lives in simplicity. Others reach the end of their lifespans and ultimately fall upon this path, becoming nothing but scattered bones. The road is long, and the farther you travel, the more solitary you become, with fewer and fewer people remaining at your side. In the end, either you will be like the others, your life at its conclusion, adding just another set of bones to the road, or you will have reached the summit of the martial path, and only then will you understand how incredibly lonely it is to be invincible. Su Zime and his companions had been traveling for half a day when they suddenly heard the sounds of fighting not far ahead. Brother Su, it seems there are bandits robbing people up ahead, Xiao Gizi said. Interesting. Su Zime smiled and replied, let's go have a look. The group rode their desert-flying horses towards the scene of the fight, only to see a group of people dressed in black outfits with their faces covered had already taken control of the situation. At the center, a carriage that seemed quite luxurious was surrounded. The guards escorting the carriage had almost all been killed, with only a very few desperately holding on. This carriage belongs to the Situ family. You bandits must have the gall of a bear and the heart of a leopard to not fear Situ family's retaliation, said an elderly guard of the carriage sternly. Chapter 37. What does it matter if it's the Situ family's carriage? The lead bandit laughed heartily. Brothers, after we rob your carriage, well, just find another place to settle down. The sky is high and birds are free to fly. surely your Situ family's power doesn't extend over the entire eastern continent by this time. All the guards of the carriage had been killed, leaving only an old man at the 9th tier of the spirit vein realm who was still struggling to hold on. This group of bandits consisted mostly of martial artists at the spirit vein realm, with the exception of their leader who seemed to have just advanced to the condensing vein realm. He wasn't in a hurry to kill the old man. Instead, like a cat playing with a mouse, he teased, "Let the people inside the carriage come out. I actually want to see which person from the Situ family is inside, boss. Someone's coming." At this moment, a lesser bandit noticed Suzume and his companions and hurriedly informed the bandit leader. The bandit leader turned his head, holding a hooked saber in his hand, and walked arrogantly forward, addressing Suzume and his group. "The kid over there. Since I'm in a good mood today, you'd better scram. Take one more step forward and I'll chop off your head. We're not leaving. As a bandit, shouldn't you at least have some professional ethics?" Suzume retorted, "What gives you the right to rob them and not rob us? Why look down on us? Are we any less than them?" The bandit leader was dumbfounded. "Is this guy sick? I let him go, but he insists on being robbed." With a grand wave of the bandit leader's hand, swarms of bandits rushed forward, encircling Suzume and his companions. "Shaogizi, it's your turn," Suzume said with a smile. "Don't worry." Shaogizi replied confidently, pulling out an iron rod from behind. Don't be fooled by Shaogizi's usual obsequious demeanor. He was a genuine inner sect disciple of true martial holy sect, a martial artist at the 5th tier of the condensing vein realm. Dealing with this group of bandits was well within his capability. Swinging the iron rod in his hand, a single strike from Shaogizi burst open the bandits' heads as easily as smashing watermelons. "Brothers, tough nut to crack, let's go together." Another bandit shouted. Shaogizi didn't flinch. He jumped off the desert flying horse, his iron rod whistling through the air with impressive momentum, each strike carrying a tremendous force that seemed to weigh over 1,000 pounds. The pressurized air around him emitted sonic booms. In just a few exchanges, all the bandits were already lying on the ground, wailing nonstop. Seeing the tide turning, the bandit leader quickly mounted his horse in an attempt to flee. Shaogizi's gaze was sharp, and he hurled his iron rod. The rod buzzed through the air, turning into a black streak of light that pierced through the back of the escaping bandit leader. Its descent unimpeded, the iron rod impaled the bandit leader before slamming into a massive boulder up ahead. The rod sank deeply into the rock before finally coming to a stop. "You've got the mad demon stick technique down pat," Suzume commented. "This faint skill of mine has just reached the other shore level, still short some of reaching perfection." Shaogizi replied, entering the microscopic, abstruse, other shore, perfection. These were the 4 levels of vein skills. Don't take the literal meaning of the mad demon stick technique too seriously. Mad here doesn't denote craziness, and demon isn't about those mass-murdering demons, Suzume casually advised. The essence of the mad demon stick technique is the vigor of pursuing one's effort, the spirit of pressing forward relentlessly. Observing Shaogizi lost in thought, Suzume rode his horse forward, standing beside the carriage. The sole surviving elder hurriedly expressed his thanks to Suzume. "It's not your place to thank me," Suzume said calmly. "Let the person inside the carriage come out." The elder hesitated for a moment before a voice that sounded like 100 larks singing flowed out from the carriage. "Uncle Fu, it's all right. I should meet my savior," the voice said. The curtain of the carriage was drawn back, revealing 2 women stepping out gracefully. The woman on the left was dressed like a maid. The one on the right wore a light cyan dress adorned with lotus flowers embroidered at the cuffs and neckline, her pale and inviting collarbone, the long black hair that rested on her shoulders, tied with a pink ribbon. She looked pure and fresh out of this world, with light makeup, expressive and intelligent large dark eyes, a delicate nose, and an oval face. This humble girl, Situ Yunqing, offers her thanks for the gentleman's life-saving grace. The woman said softly, bowing slightly. "Tsk, such a delicate little face," Suzume said, with a straw dangling from his mouth in a suggestive tone. As he said this, he reached out with his right hand to touch her cheek, but Situ Yunqing turned her head away. Suzume's right index finger hooked her chin, admiring her with his gaze, and Situ Yunqing's complexion turned deathly pale with fright. Still, she pursed her lips, locking eyes with Suzume. "Brother Su, if you want, I can go over there and keep watch for you," Shaogizi said from the side. "Let go of our young lady." The maid tried to push Suzume away, only to be grabbed by Lin Ruhu. by the collar and thrown to the side. I've never been one to force others against their will, Suzume said with a smile, withdrawing his hand. If you want to thank me, you should at least show some sincerity, not just words. I have nothing on me right now. If the gentleman doesn't mind, he can accompany me to Zhoukei City. Once we reach the Situ family, I will surely repay you generously, Situ Yunqing said sincerely, looking at Suzume. You're the young lady of the Situ family? Who are you kidding? Xiao Gizi questioned from the side. Though not much to speak of, the Situ family is still a great family of Zhoukei City. You travel without even a condensing vein realm guard to protect you, otherwise you wouldn't have been robbed by bandits. You think we don't know anything? My mother was just an ordinary woman from a small town. Her meeting with my father was purely accidental. Situ Yunqing paused, then continued, my mother is strong-willed, not wanting to live at someone's mercy or endure disdain. So she raised me alone over the years. We didn't want to have anything to do with the Situ family, but as my mother was seriously ill and worried about me before her passing, she sent me to find my father in the Situ family for a place of refuge. Hearing Situ Yunqing's words, Suzume seemed to understand. Probably Situ Yunqing's mother was just an ordinary woman and her father was the family head of the Situ familia. Huge disparity in their statuses. Situ Yunqing's mother, unwilling to live under the Situ family's roof, raised her daughter on her own outside. That is to say, many in the Situ family might not even know that their family head had an illegitimate daughter out there. The Situ family, huh? Suzume suddenly remembered some things from a previous life. The Situ family was originally just a small clan in Zhoukei City with influence and fame limited to the surrounds of the city, but later it was heard that a woman emerged from the Situ family who established the Situ Commerce Association, expanding its business across the entire eastern continent and leading the then insignificant Situ family to rise to power completely. Chapter 38. In my previous life, I heard that the extraordinary woman was named Situ Yunqing, but Suzume never met her at that time. He only occasionally heard about her in the casual conversations of others. Speaking of it, Suzume's previous life also had its dramatic moments. In the beginning, as the crown prince of the true martial holy sect, he was someone everyone wanted to flatter, but later on, after Chu Yang had cast him down into secluded Dragon Gorge and his father turned white-haired and retired to the forest overnight, without the support of the true martial holy sect, Suzume's status plummeted straight from the clouds. Those people he had never cared for became unattainable even before this. Suzume had wanted to establish his own power, but managing it alone proved too much for Shirley Chongkong. Moreover, Suzume should consider what form his power should take. If the power was to remain in the shadows, then surely Suzume couldn't always be the one to foot the bill for everyone's daily expenses. Suzume envisioned bringing this power into the open, perhaps in the guise of a restaurant. In that way, the power could be self-sustaining, and the restaurant would be one of the best channels for gathering information. Many people tend to talk about recent events while dining and drinking. Suzume didn't need his power to provide him with any particularly secret intel, but he still needed to be the first to know about remote regional news. If the Situ Yunqing he currently faced was the same person he had heard about in his past life, then she would be capable of managing this power for Suzume. Suzume was contemplating how to entice her over, and to do so in such a way that she would come willingly. We're approaching Zhoukei City. Let's rest there for the night, Suzume suggested. Everyone nodded in agreement, then watched as Suzume jumped onto the carriage and entered the compartment, causing a few of them to stare in surprise. Next to them, Xiao Gizi quickly got the gist and said to Situ Yunqing, "What are you spacing out for? Hurry up and join our brother Zimo." Situ Yunqing glanced at the others and then silently stepped into the compartment. A maid beside her seemed like she wanted to say something, but after seeing Lin Ruha's ferocious gaze, she hurriedly backed away. The carriage advanced slowly. A faint scent filled the compartment as Suzume rested his head on Situ Yunqing's lap and closed his eyes to sleep. Zhoukei City loomed in the distance, resembling a steel beast lying silently on the land. Situ Yunqing watched Suzume as he slept peacefully, her lashes fluttering gently. Suzume was not the type with striking features that could set a heart racing at first glance, but he was the kind that grew on you the more you looked. His mischievous smile gave off a bad boy vibe. Situ Yunqing pursed her lips, extended her right hand, and gently poked Suzume's cheek with her index finger. Then for some reason, she suddenly smiled knowingly. "Shall I engage in a deeper conversation with you?" Suzume suddenly opened his eyes and asked indifferently. Situ Yunqing was startled, her face instantly flushing red as she looked down without saying a word. You know, you shouldn't bother going back to the Situ family. I just so happen to need a maid to warm my bed, Suzume said casually. Thank you for the honor, master, but unfortunately Yunqing is not so fortunate, Situ Yunqing replied calmly after collecting herself. You don't have to reject it so quickly. Suzume said with a smile. Do you think the Situ family people will welcome you? What does the master imply? Situ Yunqing asked hesitantly. You don't really think this robbery was just an accident, do you? Suzume asked oddly. Situ Yunqing's expression changed. With her bright mind, she naturally thought of the worst scenario. The struggle for power in large clans is always especially brutal. If the Situ family acknowledged Situ Yunqing, the illegitimate daughter, then naturally she would have a share in the Situ family's wealth in the future. She might even contest for the position of the next family head. No one would welcome an additional competitor out of the blue. So many in the Situ family would certainly not wish to see Situ Yunqing's arrival. If you don't believe it, we can make a bet, Suzume said with a smile. Bet on what? Situ Yunqing asked curiously. Once we enter Zhou City, someone will definitely come looking for trouble with us, Suzume said, because I have disrupted their plan, and even now we're surely under someone's surveillance. I won't bet. Situ Yunqing shook her head, as she herself also agreed with Suzume's statements. Boring, Suzume yawned and stretched luxuriously before squeezing his head into Situ Yunqing's embrace and began to sleep again. As they drew closer to Zhou City, more people started to appear around them, and the carriage slowly made its way into the city. The central street, paved with Qinggang rock, was bustling with activity, crowded and steaming with vendors calling out their wares, wafting tempting aromas from both sides of the street. My father has sent someone to pick me up. I should go. Situ Yunqing woke the sleeping Suzume and said softly. At the front of the carriage, a group of soldiers clad in blue armor stood, led by an elderly man whose face glowed with health. Miss Yunqing, my surname is Tian and am a protector from the Lord's side. The Lord sent me to pick you up, the old man said warmly. Thank you for the trouble, Uncle Tian. Situ Yunqing nodded as Suzume stepped down from the carriage. Uncle Tian's gaze sharpened as he asked, is this Miss Yunqing's friend? You guys talk, I'm just here for the ride. Suzume waved his hand and said to Lin Ruhu and the others, let's find an inn first. Situ Yunqing had wanted to invite Suzume to stay at the Situ family's residence, but after thinking it over, she decided against it. After all, she was not sure of her own safety, let alone how the Situ family would react to her arrival. Linjiang Restaurant. Suzume looked at the sign in front of him and said, let's go with this one. The three walked into the restaurant, and Xiaogizi threw his silver pouch onto the table with a clang, shouting, shopkeeper, got any rooms left? The restaurant's shopkeeper, wearing a hat and sporting a mustache, hurriedly came over with a smile. There's plenty of guest rooms. Which type would you like, sirs? I want 3 rooms facing the street, with windows to the north and south where you can see both the sunrise and sunset. Xiaogizi held up 3 fingers and said, alrighty, and would the gentlemen like to have their meals in the rooms or downstairs? The shopkeeper asked attentively. Downstairs is fine, so it won't be too much trouble to clean up if a fight breaks out later. Suzume said something bewildering. The shopkeeper was puzzled but didn't ask further and went to prepare the food. Suzume and his companions ordered a pot of wine, and as they drank, 3 men emerged. Chapter 39. These 3 men, the ones on the left and right, appeared to be subordinates, while the man in the middle, muscular and with a prominent scar on his face, his body radiated a dense evil chi, suggesting he was the sort to lick his wounds after a battle. At that moment, Suzume and his company were having their meal when the scar-faced man walked straight to Suzume's table, picked up a chicken leg from the bowl, and started gnawing on it without a word. Who are you? Didn't you see this is our food? Xiaogizi stood up and said fiercely. The scar-faced man glanced sidewards at Xiaogizi, and with a right hand surging with spiritual energy, he slammed his palm onto the table in front of him. Instantly, the table splintered into pieces, and all the food toppled to the ground. Who is this person acting so arrogantly? Questioned a diner eating nearby. That's the leader of the White Crane mercenary group, Xiaobaihe, a ruthless character. Don't make a sound, someone at a neighboring table advised. Who sent you? Suzume asked with a smile on his face. Unfazed, Xiaobaihe was startled, his expression slightly changing, but still said carelessly, who sent me? I just don't like your face. Su Zime smiled, wiped his mouth with a napkin, and then all that could be seen was a flash of a blade before everyone's eyes, and Xiao Beihi's legs were severed from the knees down. Even then, Xiao Baihe hadn't managed to react, as the speed was too fast and he hadn't felt any pain. Only when his legs fell to one side and he lost his support, collapsing onto the ground, did the piercing pain hit his nerves. He looked at his legs, screaming in agony, his face going pale, and large beads of sweat rolled down his forehead. Who sent you? Su Zime continued to ask with a smile. I don't know, Xiao Baihe retorted defiantly. A sharp blade swept across his neck and a line of blood sprayed a meter out. Xiao Beihi's eyes were filled with disbelief in his dying moments. The two subordinates who had come with him seemed to be frozen in shock, standing still and not moving. Only when Su Zime's gaze swept over did they shudder. Coming back to their senses, they hastily knelt down and started kowtowing, begging for mercy. Who sent you? Su Zime asked again. The Situ family. It was their head housekeeper from the inner court who found our leader. One of them hastily replied, Are you willing to go with me to the Situ family to testify? Su Zime inquired. The man hesitated. The flash of a blade and a head of someone who died with eyes still open fell to the ground. Are you willing to testify? Su Zime turned towards the last remaining of the three and asked. The man's face struggled, then he began to frantically kowtow on the ground before Su Zime, his forehead already bloody and dripping. Please, spare me, my lord, if I testify. My whole family won't survive. You had your chance and you proved worthless. Su Zime shook his head, and with another stroke of his blade, the severed head rolled on the ground like a ball. He yawned, shook his head in resignation, and muttered to himself, Boring, this brother is too impulsive. A young man dressed in white garb, holding a folding fan, came forward and sighed while shaking his head at Su Zime. What do you mean? Su Zime asked the other party with confusion. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Zheng Guangkai. The young man unfolded the folding fan in his hand and spoke slowly. I see that you are not an ordinary person either. If you had left one of these three alive, even just one, you could have sought justice at the Situ family, but now that you've killed all three, there's no human or physical evidence left. Isn't that a pity? What's it to you? Su Zime retorted. The young man was stunned, having embarrassed himself, and stood aside without speaking further. Su Zime glanced over at Xiao Gizi and said, Xiao Gizi, please begin your performance. Xiao Gizi nodded, then picked up the iron staff from his back and swung it directly at Su Zime. Su Zime kicked him to the ground with one foot and demanded harshly, Speak, who sent you? It was the chief steward of the inner court of the Situ family. I am willing to testify, Xiao Gizi hurriedly replied. Let's go, then we will go to the Situ family and settle accounts, Su Zime said, pulling Xiao Gizi while Lin Ruhu followed behind. And they set off mightily towards the Situ family. The young man named Zheng Guangkai, bewildered, watched the departing group with widened eyes. Damn, is that even a thing? As they walked along the bustling streets, Lin Ruhu asked curiously, Brother Zimo, why did the Situ family come looking for trouble with us? Because we saved Situ Yunqing and disrupted someone's plan, Su Zime said with a smile. Lin Ruhu nodded in semi-understanding and asked, So, our pretending that Xiao Gizi is from the White Crane mercenary group, will the Situ family believe it? Don't you get it yet? Whether Xiao Gizi is actually from the White Crane mercenary group doesn't matter. Whether they believe it or not doesn't matter, Su Zime said. What's important is that we have the bigger fist. Lin Ruhu was startled. A bigger fist? He seemed to understand now. Just because one has a bigger fist, white can be argued as black, and black is white. At this moment, the Situ family, due to the arrival of Situ Yunqing, was in a state of apprehension as if a storm was brewing. The atmosphere in the family's council hall of the Situ family was somewhat heavy. The great elder looked at Situ Yutian, the family head seated at the top, and said, Family head, we are all happy that niece Yunqing could return, but to have her acknowledge her ancestry and record it in the family annals as soon as she comes back, isn't that somewhat improper? After all, she didn't grow up in the Situ family. Should we not delay this matter a bit? I agree with the great elder. The second and third elders, as if having discussed beforehand, nodded simultaneously. Are you expressing dissent against my decision? Situ Yuntian asked, frowning. We are only thinking of the future of the Situ family, the great elder said solemnly. Besides, it's not just us who oppose this. The entire family is rife with rumors. I think the family head should consider the big picture. As they were talking, they saw a servant rush in flusteredly, "Family head, elders, 3 people have come outside looking to seek justice from our Situ family. They've injured several of our patrol team, and Instructor Lu tried to stop them but was killed by one of them with a single strike," the servant reported. Situ Yunshin's eyebrows creased slightly. Instructor Lu was responsible for the family's security patrols and was one of the strongest in the entire Situ family. Aside from him and a few elders, the newcomers declared themselves disciples of the true martial holy sect and claimed that someone from our Situ family had ordered others to assassinate them. The servant continued, "True martial holy sect?" Situ Yuntian also immediately felt the problematic situation, with this behemoth like a mountain looming over the entire extreme west region. "We don't seem to have provoked any disciples of the true martial holy sect. Have we?" Chapter 40. "Let's take a look," Situ Yuntian said with a frown. When he led 3 elders to the entrance, they only saw several patrolling disciples lying in pools of blood, and Coach Lao's body was also to one side. It seemed that he had been killed with a single sword strike. The wound on his neck was very fine. "I wonder what business brings the talented disciples of the sword sect to the Situ family?" Situ Yuntian asked as he looked at Su Zimei. "And you are?" Su Zimei asked casually. "I am indeed the family head of the Situ family." Situ Yuntian. "You've come just in time. I wanted to ask if we have somehow offended the Situ family to have someone sent to kill us?" Su Zimei asked, "Why would you say that?" Situ Yuntian asked, frowning, "I can testify. I am with the White Crane mercenary group from Jokai City, and at noon today the chief steward of your family's inner courtyard found our leader, saying he needed our leader's help to kill a few people." Xiao Gizi hurriedly said. He was sniveling and crying theatrically with exaggerated acting skills. "And you are?" Situ Yuntian asked, looking at Xiao Gizi. "I am a new subordinary of our leader Xiao Baihe." Xiao Gizi replied, "Gentlemen, don't be hasty. There might be some misunderstanding here." Situ Yuntian pondered for a moment and then said to a servant beside him, "Go and call Hai Dafu for me." The servant hurried off, and before long, a corpulent fat man with a swaggering gait approached. He was so overweight that he had to pant after walking just a few steps. "That's him." Xiao Gizi, sharp-eyed, immediately pointed at the fat man and shouted. Situ Yunshin's frown deepened slightly. Hai Dafu approached Situ Yuntian and, hurrying to show respect, asked, "Family head, did you need me for something? Don't you know what you've done?" Situ Yuntian asked sternly. "Family head, I truly do not know." Hai Dafu quickly shook his head, replying anxiously, "I ask you, did you hire someone to assassinate some of the talented disciples from the holy sect?" Situ Yuntian asked, "Family head, please see clearly. Even if I had 100 guts, I wouldn't dare." Hai Dafu quickly knelt down, also sniveling and crying with acting skills that outdid Xiao Gizi by several streets. "Gentlemen, could there be some kind of misunderstanding?" Situ Yuntian turned his head, looked at Su Zimei and said, "And could you gentlemen perhaps show me some proof that you are disciples of the holy sect? It's not that I doubt you, but just to be cautious, I have an inner sect disciples token here." Xiao Gizi hurried forward, placing his own token in front of Situ Yuntian, and said, "Does it need to be this real?" Situ Yuntian felt as though he'd been dealt a bad hand. "Weren't you just claiming to be a member of the White Crane mercenary group? How come now you've suddenly become an inner sect disciple of the holy sect?" But it was this mix of truth and falsehood that made Situ Yuntian feel a bit troubled. If the other party really was an inner sect disciple of the true martial holy sect, with even an inner sect disciple status being that of a messenger, then what an astonishing identity this young man might possess. "Are you sure you don't know anything?" Su Zimei stepped forward and asked, "Or rather, might you not be the mastermind? Maybe someone else is directing you?" "I truly do not know," Hai Dafu said with a frantic look, glancing aimlessly towards the 3 elders, and hurriedly spoke. "You don't need to rush to deny it," Su Zimei said. "In our true martial holy sect, we have a method of soul search that can inquire about all the memories of a person from within a month. But the price is that the person on whom the soul search technique has been cast could either die or, at the very least, become mentally incapacitated." Hai Dafu's complexion changed, his expression struggling, and Situ Yunshin's eyebrows furrowed slightly as he looked to the side and noticed that the expressions of the 3 elders had changed as well. "Hai Dafu, won't you admit it?" Situ Yuntian bellowed, spiritual energy surging in his palm. Opening 3 vein gates on his body, as the peak aura of the true vein realm burst forth. With a hit on High Daphis' shoulder, High Daphis' entire body burst with blood flowing from his 7 orifices. Rest assured, esteemed talented disciples of the holy sect, our Situ family will certainly not shield any suspects, Situ Yuntian said firmly. Regardless of whether High Dafu is suspect or not, we owe you all an explanation. Yes, indeed. A few of the elders at the side also heaved sighs of relief and hurriedly responded, it's a pity, perhaps some leads have now been severed. Su Zime sighed as he looked up, then smiled at everyone and said, but no matter, there's plenty of time. It's not often we have the honor of hosting the talented disciples of the holy sect at our Situ family. If you don't mind, shall I have a feast prepared? Situ Yuntian asked with a smile. I have no objections. Su Zime smiled and followed Situ Yuntian into the main hall. Su Zime realized that many people preferred to bond over a meal. However, the Situ family also gave Su Zime some ideas. Perhaps he could advance his plans for establishing his power. Subduing the Situ family, using them as a stepping stone, proved to be a fine opportunity. During the meal, Su Zime had a few drinks and tentatively asked, Family head Situ. The Situ family has always lived in seclusion in Jokei City. Have you ever thought about expanding outwards? Situ Yuntian was taken aback for a moment. He understood what Su Zime meant. With the current strength of the Situ family, expansion was simply not feasible, but with Su Zime's help, it was a different story. But Situ Yuntian could also see what was at stake. Right now, the Situ family still bore the Situ surname. If they truly cooperated with Su Zime, then the Situ family would effectively become part of Su Zime's faction, although they would gain in strength. Many things would no longer be under their control. After all, the premise of cooperation is that both parties are not significantly mismatched in strength, and the Situ family was certainly not on an equal footing with Su Zime. Young Master suggests, our Situ family simply wishes to live in peace and stability. We have no other ambitions. Situ Yuntian responded with a smile. That's good. Su Zime nodded and said with a smile, steady and solid development is also robust. After dinner, Su Zime declined Situ Yunshin's offer for them to stay with the Situ family and, along with Lin Ruhu and Xiao Gizi, took their leave. He didn't encounter Situ Yunshin. After all, she was an important part of his plans for establishing influence. Back at Linjiang restaurant, Su Zime stood at the window of his room, watching the sun slowly setting in the distance. He tapped on the windowsill 3 times with his right hand and said with a smile, Black 13, come out. From behind, a shadow suddenly materialized out of nowhere. Black 13 was somewhat puzzled. He was very confident in his ability to conceal himself and didn't know what had gone wrong. Young Master, the deputy sect master was concerned for your safety and had me follow you secretly. I would not have revealed myself had there been no threat to your life. Black 13 explained his mission. Help me kill someone, Su Zime said indifferently.